Okay, so something interesting that I have found in several cases personal to me is the purported absence of the elder male from social media. For example, in the case of the Umbrella Academy girl, this elder male was, in the words of this young female, not to be found on Facebook, which is just another example of how every single aspect of this man should have, theoretically, given this young female reason to be cautious of this individual, and yet she failed to identify a single red flag and perceived absolutely no danger, which again, knowing what we know about this young woman and everything that transpired, is unequivocal proof that this young female was not in a state of emotional competency. This is not a stable young woman who should be anywhere near a relationship in general, let alone a relationship with a man who could theoretically be her grandfather. Anyway, suddenly, after years of excessive social media use, this young female herself was quoted as saying that she was taking a break from social media. The fact that this revelation coincides with her meeting of this elder male is definitely no coincidence. Firstly, we need to understand exactly what is happening here, for it is multifaceted. This girl found herself essentially in awe of this senior colleague. You know, carpe diem, he lives life to the fullest, he doesn't waste his time on phone screens, etc., etc. She was being fed a narrative of which she would become conditioned to essentially worship this elder male and his outlook, his perspective on life, be in total admiration of him and the way he purportedly is choosing to live his life. At the same time, she herself is becoming indoctrinated into following the same narrative by removing herself from social media, which effectively isolates her from her support network and simultaneously prevents her from revealing her relationship to her friends, her age peers, etc. This is the grooming technique of isolation being implemented. However, isolation is a technique that I have previously addressed in another video, but I will be returning to as part of my rebranded series. But for now, the most important aspect within all of this is that in actuality, this predator was without doubt lurking on Facebook the whole time. During the weeks in which he began to advance upon her, and remember, it went from him simply complimenting her appearance every morning upon her arrival at work, you know, morning beautiful, morning gorgeous. So it went from this to them being in a full-blown romantic relationship within the space of 2.5, 3 weeks. I know as a fact that this man had gone home, looked this young woman up on Facebook, and did his research. He then returns to work with the knowledge of, you know, what literature she likes, what music she listens to, the way in which she communicates, her political views, her ideology, etc. And then he can begin to forge an emotional connection with her to justify his interest in being with her. We know that his interest was based on nothing other than her physical appearance. It was entirely about her age the whole time. But to detract from this, he's working under the false pretense that he recognizes her as a three-dimensional person, that he sees who she really is, unlike young men her own age. Ultimately, that, you know, he relates to her. This is not about your age. We're relating as adults here. It's definitely not about the fact that you could realistically be my granddaughter. Anyway, how can I make these assessments with such conviction? Well, A, I am a male. I know how we think. B, I am an analytical person by nature. I analyze everything down to the most finite detail. But C, honestly, I can see through people with very little information. Yet in this case, I have pages and pages of information about everything this man ever said and did when advancing upon this young female at a Toronto film studio during the production of The Umbrella Academy. In conclusion, this young female was groomed. I know she was groomed, and I think the more that people hear aspects of this story, they will come to realize that, yes, she was unequivocally groomed by this man. But she was likely not even the first victim to be groomed by this man. To me, this is a seasoned manipulator. Anyway, only a month after this relationship between the two had been conceived of, the studio actually dismissed both employees simultaneously. Out of a workforce of hundreds, only the predatory elder male employee and this young female colleague, whose career in the film industry was in its infancy, I mean, she'd only been there a matter of months, they were the only two to be fired, and it just happened that it was completely, apparently unrelated to the fact that a young woman had been groomed under their watch in an industry that has supposedly taken measures in the safeguarding of young women, and ultimately that the two individuals had been engaging in sexual activity in and around the studio itself. I mean, I'm currently looking at text message evidence right now in which the young female states, and I quote, "We were running around at work looking for places to make out." And also I have one here danger. He was kissing my boobs when we were making out in the toilets. You are honestly trying to tell me this isn't suspect as fuck? This wasn't a cover-up? Really? But even if somehow their dismissal was genuinely completely unrelated to everything else that had been occurring between the two, the given reason still implicates the studio anyway for employing fatigued and inadequately trained employees, as apparently, basically, in essence, a man injured himself using equipment in a way in which he should not have been, and subsequently gravely injured himself, with only the predatory male and his young female romantic partner running to the aid of this potentially dying man. Meanwhile, every single other employee evacuated the scene and left him there to die, as it is apparently health and safety protocol. No. I smell bullshit. Self-preservationally speaking, yes, many would have evacuated, I believe this, but it is basic human instinct to run toward danger when a fellow member of your species is potentially dying. So none of this is ringing true at all. What is going on here? This man clearly got to a point in his life where he knows his career is realistically ending and he can just disappear and live off his pension, and so he is actively jeopardizing the careers of young females because, as I say in all of my videos, he doesn't give a fuck. When you enter a relationship with these elder men, they are thinking about one thing and one thing only, and that is themselves, not the young females that they are getting involved with.